My hands trembled with silent rage as my wife smirked across the Christmas table. "The garage is ready for you," she announced while they laughed. 5 years of hiding my empire, enduring their mockery. Wife's boss paled as his phone exploded with messages from the mysterious they all feared. Cold revenge served at Christmas. You know what's awesome about Christmas dinner with the in-laws? Absolutely nothing. But hey, at least I get to be the main course every single year. Forget the turkey. Marcus is back on the menu, folks, and apparently I'm best served with a side of public humiliation and a generous helping of condescension. I'm sitting here at this ridiculously long mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars, watching my wife Claire butter her dinner roll with the same smug satisfaction she uses when she's about to deliver a knockout punch to my dignity. The whole Norman Rockwell Christmas scene is playing out in front of me. Twinkling lights on a 12-foot tree that looks like it was personally decorated by Martha Stewart herself, enough food to feed a small army, and relatives who've gathered not to celebrate the birth of Christ, but to witness the annual crucifixion of yours truly. "So, Marcus," Claire says, her voice dripping with that special brand of sweetness that means I'm about to get screwed over harder than a Black Friday shopper, "I have some exciting news to share with everyone." She pauses for dramatic effect because God forbid we miss a single moment of this theatrical masterpiece. "The garage is ready for you." And just like that, the entire table erupts into laughter like I'm Dave Chappelle dropping his best material. Uncle Fred nearly chokes on his wine. Aunt Beatrice is wiping tears from her eyes, and my mother-in-law is clapping her hands together like she just witnessed the funniest thing since sliced bread learned to tell jokes. Even the kids are giggling, though they probably don't understand why everyone thinks Daddy sleeping in the garage is comedy gold. I grip my fork so hard I'm pretty sure I'm about to turn it into abstract art. 5 years. 5 goddamn years I've been playing this role, pretending to be some struggling adjunct professor driving a beat-up Honda Civic that sounds like it's perpetually having an asthma attack. 5 years of hiding an empire that would make these people's jaws drop so hard they'd need surgery to reattach them. And now, they've officially demoted me from disappointing son-in-law to garage tenant. What's next? Am I going to get evicted to the doghouse? Oh wait, they don't have a dog, probably because it would be treated better than me. But I'm nothing if not a professional actor at this point, so I plaster on my biggest, fakest smile and lean back in my chair like I just won the lottery. Oh wow, a garage cot? Fantastic. Just what I asked Santa for this year. Forget socks and whiskey. Cold concrete floors and the smell of motor oil are really the gifts that keep on giving. I mean, who needs basic human dignity when you can have hypothermia and back problems? Claire's boss, Mr. Harding, is practically having a seizure from laughing so hard, his wine sloshing out of his crystal glass like he's auditioning for rich guy stereotype number 47 in some bad made-for-TV movie. This is the same guy who probably hasn't slept on anything less comfortable than Egyptian cotton sheets in the last 20 years. But sure, Marcus sleeping on a cot next to rusty lawn equipment is absolutely hilarious. My mother-in-law, bless her ice-cold heart, decides to pile on because apparently the humiliation buffet isn't quite full yet. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Marcus. There's a space heater out there. You'll be fine." The way she says it, you'd think she was offering me a suite at the Ritz. The heater she's referring to is basically a glorified toaster with asthma that I'm pretty sure was manufactured sometime during the Carter administration. It wheezes more than my grandfather did after his third pack of cigarettes. I take a sip of water, because God knows they're not wasting the good wine on the garage dweller, and survey my luxurious new accommodations through the kitchen window. Between Dad's dusty golf clubs that haven't seen action since Clinton was in office and boxes of creepy ceramic angels that look like they're planning a hostile takeover of Christmas itself, they've managed to squeeze in a cot so thin I'm convinced it was stolen from a Boy Scout troop. The whole setup screams, "We care about you," in the same way a parking ticket says, "Have a nice day." But here's the thing that's really getting me through this Norman Rockwell nightmare. While they're all having their laughs at my expense, my phone is practically vibrating itself off the table with urgent emails from boardroom meetings. The same board meetings that are going to decide Mr. Harding's fate tomorrow morning. The same meetings that are just waiting for one tiny little signature. Mine. See, while Claire's been bragging about her shiny new promotion and Harding's been treating me like I'm some kind of charity case, I've been sitting on information that would make their heads spin faster than Linda Blair in The Exorcist. That struggling adjunct professor routine? Yeah, that's just my day job. My night job involves running a corporate empire that these people couldn't even pronounce correctly, let alone understand. So I sit there, nodding along to their jokes, smiling at their insults, and pretending that their opinion of me matters more than the quarterly reports that are burning a hole in my inbox. Let them laugh. Let them point. Let them treat me like I'm some kind of family disappointment who can't figure out how to adult properly. Because tomorrow morning, when the sun comes up and the real world starts spinning again, I'm going to be the punchline they choke on. And trust me, the irony is going to be absolutely delicious. So here I am, standing in what can only be described as the Taj Mahal of garages. If the Taj Mahal had been designed by someone who flunked out of architecture school and had a serious grudge against human comfort, the smell of motor oil and that distinctly garage-y funk hits me like a slap in the face, which is honestly just the cherry on top of this whole humiliation sundae I've been served tonight. Claire's boss, Mr. Harding, is still chuckling at my expense like he's watching his favorite comedy special, his wine sloshing around in that crystal glass of his with all the grace of a drunk penguin. This is the same guy who probably spends more on a single bottle of wine than most people spend on groceries for a month. But sure, my living situation is pure entertainment gold. He's practically wiping tears from his eyes as he watches me survey my new kingdom of concrete and cobwebs. You know, Marcus, he says between chuckles, this reminds me of my college days. Builds character. Right, because sleeping on what amounts to a glorified napkin surrounded by Christmas decorations from 1987 is exactly the same as his fraternity house experiences at Yale. I'm sure his character-building college days involved Egyptian cotton sheets and a meal plan that didn't consist of whatever leftovers made it past the family feeding frenzy. My mother-in-law decides this is the perfect moment to add her 2 cents because apparently the comedy show isn't quite over yet. There's a space heater out there, Marcus. Don't be so dramatic. She waves her hand dismissively like she's shooing away a particularly annoying fly. The way she says dramatic makes it sound like I'm asking for a personal butler and a hot tub, when really I'm just wondering if hypothermia is covered under their homeowner's insurance policy. The heater in question is sitting in the corner like some kind of mechanical gargoyle, looking about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. This thing is older than disco and probably twice as dangerous. It's got more duct tape holding it together than actual original parts, and I'm pretty sure it wheezes louder than my Uncle Bob after he climbs a flight of stairs. But hey, at least it matches the general aesthetic of things that should have been thrown away during the Bush administration. The first Bush administration. Between Dad's golf clubs, which are collecting dust like they're part of some archaeological dig, and approximately 17 boxes of ceramic angels that look like they escaped from a Stephen King novel, they've somehow managed to wedge in a cot that's so thin I'm convinced it was designed by someone who thought comfort was a character flaw. The whole setup screams, "We love you," in the same way a root canal says, "Happy birthday." But here's what's really getting me through this whole Dickensian nightmare. My phone won't stop buzzing with emails that would make these people's heads explode faster than microwaved eggs. While they're all having their little laugh ride at my expense, I'm getting urgent messages about boardroom meetings, quarterly projections, and acquisition deals that involve more zeros than they could count if they spent all weekend trying. The board meeting that's going to decide Harding's fate? Yeah, that's scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. And guess who's the only signature they need to make it official? Yours truly, the garage-dwelling adjunct professor who apparently can't figure out how to pay rent like a grown-up. The irony is so thick I could cut it with a butter knife, assuming I'm allowed to use the good silverware in my new concrete palace. I take another look around my luxurious accommodations, trying not to laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. There's a workbench covered in tools that look like they haven't been touched since the Clinton years, a lawnmower that's probably held together by prayer and good intentions, and enough spider webs to make Charlotte jealous. The concrete floor has that special kind of cold that seeps through your bones and makes you question your life choices, which is honestly pretty appropriate given the circumstances. The Christmas decorations they've stored out here are like a graveyard of holiday cheer from decades past. There are boxes labeled Christmas 1995 and Christmas Stuff, Mom's Attic, that are probably filled with ornaments that have seen more history than a museum curator. Some of these ceramic angels look like they're judging me, which is just perfect because apparently even inanimate objects think I'm a failure. But you know what? Let them all laugh. Let them point and whisper and treat me like I'm some kind of charity case who needs their pity and their garage floor to sleep on. Because while they're all patting themselves on the back for being such generous hosts, I'm sitting on information that would turn their perfect little Christmas dinner into a nuclear meltdown. The company that Claire works for? The one where she just got her shiny new promotion that she's been bragging about all night? Yeah, I own it. Well, technically one of my shell companies owns it. But who's counting? The same company where Harding is desperately trying to keep his job while making jokes about my living situation is currently hemorrhaging money faster than a burst dam. And guess who has all the reports proving it? Tomorrow morning, when that board meeting starts and they're all wondering who this mysterious CEO is that's been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, they're going to get the shock of their privileged little lives. The same guy they just relegated to sleeping next to rusty garden tools and boxes of creepy holiday decorations is the one who's been signing their paychecks this whole time. So I smile and nod and pretend that their opinion matters while secretly counting down the hours until I can drop this bombshell on their perfectly manicured heads. The garage might be cold, but revenge? Revenge is going to be absolutely delicious, and I'm going to serve it colder than this concrete floor I'm supposed to sleep on tonight. Back at the dinner table, because apparently my humiliation tour isn't quite complete yet, my brother-in-law Derek decides it's his turn to take a swing at the piñata that is my dignity. Derek's one of those guys who peaked in high school and has been coasting on that glory ever since. Like he's still the quarterback, even though his biggest accomplishment these days is parallel parking his oversized pickup truck without hitting anything. So Marcus, he says with that smug grin that makes me want to introduce his face to my fist, are you still grading those community college papers? You know, teaching the real intellectual heavyweights of tomorrow. He chuckles at his own joke like he just delivered a line worthy of a Netflix special, when really he sounds more like a rejected contestant from a bad reality show. The whole table turns to look at me like I'm some kind of zoo exhibit, waiting for my response with the same anticipation they'd have watching a train wreck in slow motion. My wife Claire rolls her eyes so hard I'm surprised they don't fall out of her head and roll across the table like a couple of wayward meatballs. The way she looks at me, you'd think my job was professionally disappointing people for a living, which, to be fair, seems to be what I'm doing right now. But hey, if they want a show, I'll give them a show. I take a sip of water like it's the finest wine money can buy and lean back in my chair with the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing you're about to deliver a punchline they'll never see coming. Oh yeah, Derek, it's absolutely thrilling. I say with the kind of deadpan delivery that would make Stephen Wright jealous. Just yesterday, I taught an entire class the proper technique for stapling papers in the upper left corner. Change lives, man. I'm talking life-altering stuff here. One kid actually cried when he finally got it right. Tears of joy, pure educational bliss. The table absolutely howls with laughter, like I just dropped the comedic equivalent of a nuclear bomb. Uncle Fred is slapping his knee so hard he's probably going to bruise. Aunt Beatrice is dabbing at her eyes with her napkin, and even the kids are giggling even though they probably think I'm talking about actual staples, like the food kind. Derek looks like he just won the lottery for getting such a perfect setup to mock me with. And the week before that, I continue, really hamming it up now because if I'm going to be the entertainment, I might as well be the headliner. I had to explain the difference between there, and there to a classroom full of adults. Took 3 hours. 3 hours. I'm basically a linguistic superhero saving America from grammatical apocalypse, one semicolon at a time. More laughter erupts around the table, and I'm sitting here thinking about how these people have no idea that while they're laughing at my pathetic teaching career, I'm actually running a corporate empire that could buy and sell their entire social circle before lunch. The same brain they think is wasted on community college students is currently juggling acquisition deals, merger negotiations, and hostile takeovers that would make their heads spin faster than a washing machine on steroids. My phone buzzes under the table with another urgent email, probably about the quarterly projections or maybe the Henderson account that's been driving my executives crazy for the past 2 weeks. I glance down discreetly and see it's from my CFO, marked Urgent, Board Meeting Prep. The subject line alone contains more financial terminology than these people have heard in their entire lives combined. Claire, not content to let me have even a moment of peace, decides to pile on because apparently the comedy roast of Marcus isn't quite done yet. Maybe you should take some business lessons from Mr. Harding here, she says, gesturing toward her boss like he's some kind of corporate deity worthy of worship. Hard work actually pays off in the real world, honey. Oh, the irony is so thick I could serve it as dessert. If only she knew that her precious Mr. Harding is currently sweating bullets about tomorrow's board meeting, where his entire future is going to be decided by a vote that I control. The same hard work she's talking about has resulted in her department losing more money than a drunk gambler in Vegas. But sure, let's all pretend that climbing the corporate ladder through office politics and brown-nosing is the same as actual competence. I smile that special smile I reserve for moments when the universe decides to serve up irony with a side of poetic justice. You're absolutely right, Claire. Hard work does pay off. Unless you're in your department, of course. Then it sort of evaporates into thin air along with the quarterly budget. The comment flies right over her head like a paper airplane in a hurricane, but I catch Derek trying to hide a smirk behind his wine glass. Even he can do basic math, and Claire's track record with company funds is about as impressive as a chocolate teapot. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about my penthouse in Manhattan with the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook Central Park, or maybe my private island in the Caribbean where the biggest decision I have to make is whether to have the chef prepare lobster or Wagyu beef for dinner. These people think sleeping in a garage is rock bottom, but I could buy this entire neighborhood and turn it into my personal parking lot if I wanted to. The best part is watching them all congratulate themselves for being such successful, important people while completely missing the fact that the guy they're treating like a charity case could probably fund their retirement dreams with pocket change. It's like watching a bunch of minnows mock a shark for not knowing how to swim in shallow water. But I just keep smiling and nodding, playing my part in this little theatrical production they call family dinner. Because tomorrow morning, when that boardroom door opens and they see who's really been calling the shots all this time, the punchline is going to hit them harder than a freight train full of reality checks. Let them laugh. Let them think I'm some kind of academic failure who can't hack it in the real world. Because the real world? I don't just live in it. I own it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the main event of this evening's circus, Claire's moment to shine brighter than a Vegas casino sign. She's practically glowing with that special kind of smugness that only comes from getting a promotion you probably don't deserve, basking in the spotlight like she's accepting an Oscar for best performance in a corporate drama. The way she's sitting there, you'd think she just cured cancer and solved world hunger during her lunch break. I have some exciting news to share with everyone, she announces, her voice dripping with the kind of fake modesty that makes my teeth ache. She pauses dramatically, making sure every single person at this table is hanging on her every word like she's about to reveal the location of buried treasure. I got promoted to junior vice president. The table erupts into applause and congratulations like she just announced she's running for president, and they're all her campaign managers. Uncle Fred raises his wine glass in a toast. Aunt Beatrice is clapping her hands together like a trained seal, and my mother-in-law looks like she might actually shed tears of joy. Even the kids are cheering, though they probably think junior vice president is some kind of superhero title. Claire tosses her hair back and lets the candlelight catch her new diamond bracelet, which I happen to know cost more than most people's cars because I've seen the credit card statement. She angles her wrist just right so everyone can see it sparkle, like she's a magician performing the world's most expensive magic trick. The thing is practically blinding people across the table, throwing little rainbows around the room like a disco ball made of pure capitalism. Mr. Harding nods along like a proud father watching his daughter graduate valedictorian, even though we both know Claire's brilliant restructuring has been about as successful as a chocolate teapot in a sauna. He's playing his part perfectly in this little corporate theater production, probably because he needs all the allies he can get right now, considering tomorrow morning's board meeting is going to determine whether he still has a job by lunch. The restructuring project was a complete success, Claire continues, her voice getting more confident with every word. We streamlined operations, optimized workflow efficiency, and increased productivity across all departments. She's throwing around business buzzwords like confetti at New Year's, each meaningless phrase delivered with the kind of conviction that would make a politician jealous. Meanwhile, I'm scrolling through my phone under the table, trying not to laugh out loud at the sheer audacity of what I'm hearing. Her department's brilliant restructuring? The one she's bragging about like it's the business equivalent of splitting the atom? Yeah, that little project has cost the company exactly $4.2 million and counting. I've got the quarterly loss report sitting right here in my inbox, complete with colorful charts and graphs that show her department's performance diving faster than a lead balloon. This streamlined operations she's so proud of actually resulted in 3 different departments duplicating each other's work because nobody bothered to communicate the changes properly. They optimized workflow efficiency, led to a bottleneck so severe that customer complaints increased by 300%. And that increased productivity. Well, if you count producing more problems, confusion, and interdepartmental warfare as productivity, then yeah, mission accomplished. But here she is, accepting praise and congratulations like she just invented sliced bread while wearing a bracelet that probably cost more than the average American makes in 6 months. The irony is so thick I could serve it with a spoon. But nobody else at this table has access to the financial reports that would turn this celebration into a wake. I lean over just close enough to my cousin Sam, so he can hear me without the rest of the table catching on. Congrats, honey, I say in a voice just loud enough to be conversational. You've successfully lost more money than Vegas slot machines on New Year's Eve. That's some world-class talent right there. Sam nearly spits his wine across the table, quickly covering it up with a cough that sounds about as convincing as a $3 bill. He's trying so hard not to laugh that his face is turning red, and he keeps looking at me like I just told him the funniest joke he's ever heard. Which, to be fair, I kind of did. Except it's not really a joke when you're talking about actual financial disasters. Claire doesn't notice Sam's near wine explosion because she's too busy soaking up the praise like a sponge in a rainstorm. She's telling everyone about her new corner office with the view of the parking garage, her assistant who's probably more qualified than she is, and her expanded responsibilities that include strategic planning and cross-departmental synergy optimization. Each phrase sounds more ridiculous than the last, like she's reading from a corporate buzzword bingo card. The board was so impressed with my innovative approach, she continues, and I have to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. The board was impressed. All right. Impressed by how quickly one person could turn a profitable department into a financial black hole. They're probably still trying to figure out how someone can make that many expensive mistakes while looking so confident about it. Harding raises his glass again, playing his role as the supportive boss to perfection. To Claire, he says with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes, and her continued success at the company. What he doesn't mention is that her continued success might be the thing that gets them both fired when the real numbers come to light tomorrow morning. The best part of this whole performance is watching Claire bask in praise for achievements that exist only in her imagination, while completely oblivious to the fact that she's basically been playing corporate Jenga with the company's finances. Every decision she's made has been like pulling out another support beam from an already unstable structure, and now the whole thing is ready to come crashing down. But I just sit there smiling, nodding at all the right moments, and pretending that her success story isn't actually a cautionary tale about what happens when incompetence meets unlimited confidence. Because tomorrow, when reality comes knocking on that corner office door, the view is going to change dramatically. Just when I think this dinner theater production can't get any more entertaining, Harding's phone starts buzzing like an angry hornet trapped in a jar. The sound cuts through Claire's self-congratulatory monologue faster than a fire alarm during a boring meeting, and suddenly everyone's attention shifts to watching this guy's face go through more color changes than a mood ring having an identity crisis. He glances down at his phone, and I swear I can actually see the exact moment his soul leaves his body. His face goes from successful corporate executive enjoying a nice dinner to deer caught in headlights of an 18-wheeler in about 2 seconds flat. It's like watching someone realize they've been using the wrong bathroom for 6 months, except potentially more career-ending. Excuse me, he mumbles, practically stumbling over his own feet as he pushes back from the table. I need to take this business call. You know how it is. Yeah, we know how it is, Harding. It's called panic, and you're wearing it like a cheap cologne that everyone can smell from across the room. He disappears into the hallway faster than a politician running from a scandal. But the walls in this house are about as soundproof as a screen door, so we can all hear every desperate word of his conversation. His voice carries back to us like he's broadcasting live on the family drama radio station. And let me tell you, this is better than anything Netflix has to offer. Yes, I understand the urgency. His voice drifts back, getting more strained with each word. I need 5 minutes with her before the meeting. Please, just 5 minutes. This meeting tomorrow could decide the company's entire future, and I need to explain the quarterly projections before. His voice drops to what he probably thinks is a whisper, but sounds more like a stage whisper in a high school play. I'm sitting here trying not to grin like the Cheshire Cat, because I know exactly what phone call he's getting. That's my assistant calling to confirm tomorrow's board meeting schedule, the one where we're going to discuss the massive financial hemorrhaging that's been happening under his watch. The same meeting where certain people are going to learn that actions have consequences, and incompetence has a price tag attached. When Harding returns to the table, he looks like someone just told him that Christmas is canceled and Santa's been arrested for tax evasion. His face has taken on this grayish pallor that makes him look like he's been living on nothing but fear and instant coffee for the past week. His hands are actually shaking slightly as he picks up his wine glass, and I'm starting to wonder if we should call a paramedic or just enjoy the show. The conversation around the table has gotten awkwardly quiet, like everyone suddenly realized they're watching a man slowly have a mental breakdown in real time. Even the kids have stopped chattering, probably sensing that something's wrong with the grown-up who was laughing at Daddy's jokes just a few minutes ago. But Claire, bless her oblivious little heart, decides this is the perfect moment to double down on her victory lap. She looks at Harding's pale, sweaty face and somehow interprets it as the perfect opening to deliver another motivational speech about the virtues of hard work and corporate success. "Marcus," she says, turning to me with that special condescending smile she reserves for moments when she wants to really twist the knife. "Maybe you should learn something from Mr. Harding here. This is what real dedication looks like. Hard work actually pays off in the business world." The irony is so thick I could cut it with a butter knife and serve it as the main course. Here's Claire, lecturing me about learning from a guy who's currently sweating through his expensive suit because he's about to lose everything, while she's completely clueless about the fact that her own career is hanging by a thread thinner than her understanding of basic economics. I take a sip of water and give her my most innocent smile, the one I've perfected over 5 years of pretending to be impressed by her corporate achievements. "Sure does, honey," I say with just enough sarcasm to make it interesting, but not enough to tip my hand completely. Hard work definitely pays off. Unless, of course, you're working hard at the wrong things. Then it just evaporates. Claire completely misses the subtle dig because she's too busy basking in her own perceived brilliance. But I notice Derek raising an eyebrow at me from across the table. He might be an overgrown frat boy, but he's not completely stupid, and even he's starting to notice that something doesn't add up about this whole situation. Harding, meanwhile, is staring at his phone like it's a ticking time bomb, probably wondering if he should just fake a heart attack and get carried out of here on a stretcher. Every few seconds it buzzes with another message, and each time his face gets a little more pale and his grip on his wine glass gets a little more desperate. The best part is watching him try to maintain his composure while internally freaking out about tomorrow's meeting. He's attempting to participate in the dinner conversation, nodding at appropriate moments and making small talk about the weather, but his eyes have that glazed-over look of someone who's mentally preparing their resignation letter. The forecast says snow tomorrow, Aunt Beatrice mentions, completely oblivious to the corporate drama unfolding right in front of her cranberry sauce. "Snow," Harding repeats mechanically, like he's never heard the word before. "Yes, snow. Weather. Tomorrow." He sounds like a malfunctioning robot trying to process human emotions, which isn't far from the truth considering his current mental state. I'm sitting here thinking about how tomorrow morning is going to play out, imagining the look on his face when he walks into that boardroom and sees me sitting at the head of the table. The same guy he's been indirectly mocking all evening, the one sleeping in the garage, the struggling professor who can't afford decent housing, is going to be the one deciding whether he gets to keep his corner office or starts updating his LinkedIn profile. Just when I thought this dinner couldn't get any more entertaining, the conversation takes a sharp left turn into territory that makes me want to either burst out laughing or choke on my mashed potatoes. Because apparently, when you put this many people around a dinner table with enough wine flowing to float a small yacht, The conversation inevitably drifts toward the kind of gossip that would make TMZ jealous. Aunt Beatrice, who's had just enough wine to make her think she's got insider information on global economics, leans forward conspiratorially and drops her voice to what she probably thinks is a whisper but sounds more like a stage announcement. Has everyone been following the news about Summit Enterprises? That mysterious conglomerate that's been buying up companies left and right like they're collecting Pokemon cards. The whole table perks up like a bunch of meerkats who just heard a predator approaching. Even the kids stop fidgeting and start listening, probably because adults talking in hushed tones about mysterious business dealings sounds way more interesting than arguing about who gets the last dinner roll. Uncle Fred nods sagely, like he's some kind of Wall Street insider instead of a guy who sells insurance and considers balancing his checkbook a major financial achievement. Oh yeah, I've been reading about them in the business section. Whoever's running that company is absolutely ruthless. Never shows their face, operates through shell companies, makes hostile takeovers look like friendly handshakes. Claire jumps into the conversation with the enthusiasm of someone who thinks reading the business section once a month makes her Warren Buffett's intellectual equal. I heard the CEO is some spoiled trust fund brat hiding out in a London penthouse, probably never worked a real day in their life. You know the type, inherited daddy's money and thinks that makes them a business genius. I nearly choke on my mashed potatoes, and I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with my mother-in-law's cooking skills. The irony of sitting here listening to Claire describe me as a spoiled trust fund brat while I'm being treated like the family's charity case is so rich it could solve the national debt. And the London penthouse comment? Well, she's not wrong about that part, except I own 2 of them, and I earned every square foot through blood, sweat, and more all-nighters than a medical resident. I bet it's some Bond villain type. Uncle Fred continues, getting more animated as the wine continues to work its magic on his imagination. You know, sitting in some high-tech lair, stroking a white cat while plotting world domination through quarterly earnings reports. The mental image of me as a Bond villain is so ridiculous that I have to cough to cover up what would definitely be inappropriate laughter. Although, to be fair, I do have a pretty impressive office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that could make a grown man weep. And while I don't have a white cat, I do have a doorman who treats me like I might actually be plotting world domination. Derek, not to be outdone in the speculation department, decides to add his own theory to this amateur detective hour. My buddy who works in finance says the whole operation is run by algorithms and artificial intelligence. No human being could make that many calculated moves without making mistakes. It's like playing chess with a computer that can see 20 moves ahead. If only he knew that the computer he's talking about is currently sitting 3 feet away from him, trying not to laugh at how wrong and yet somehow accidentally right he is. I mean, I'm not an AI, but I do tend to think about 15 steps ahead of everyone else, which is probably why I'm sitting on a corporate empire while they're debating whether I deserve to sleep indoors. My mother-in-law, never one to be left out of a good conspiracy theory, chimes in with her own contribution to this intellectual discussion. I read somewhere that they think it might be a woman. You know, breaking the glass ceiling by being more ruthless than any man ever was. Girl power and all that. Claire nods enthusiastically at this theory, probably because it fits with her worldview that successful women have to be twice as tough as men to get half the credit. That would be amazing. Finally, a woman who's not afraid to play hardball in a man's world. I'm sitting here thinking about how close to the truth they actually are, except they've got the gender wrong and the motivation completely backwards. I'm not being ruthless for the sake of being ruthless. I'm being strategic. There's a difference between being a corporate villain and being someone who actually understands how to run a business without bleeding money like a punctured artery. Harding, who's been looking progressively more uncomfortable as this conversation continues, finally speaks up with the kind of nervous laugh that sounds like a car engine trying to start in sub-zero weather. Well, whoever it is, they certainly know what they're doing. Summit's acquisition strategy is impressive. The way he says impressive makes it sound like he's complimenting someone who just beat him at chess, while simultaneously stealing his lunch money. Which, to be fair, is pretty much exactly what's been happening, except instead of lunch money, it's been market share and quarterly profits. I bet there's some kind of reclusive genius, Aunt Beatrice continues, really warming up to her role as amateur business analyst. Like Howard Hughes, but with better technology and more offshore accounts. I lean back in my chair and decide to have a little fun with this whole situation. After all, if they're going to speculate wildly about my identity, I might as well enjoy the show from the front row. Or maybe, I say with the kind of casual tone you'd use to comment on the weather, it's just some regular guy who's really good at keeping secrets. You know, hiding in plain sight. Could be anyone, really. Your accountant, your neighbor, the quiet guy sitting at your dinner table. Uncle Fred laughs so hard, he nearly spills wine on the tablecloth. Right, Marcus? Like you've got time for corporate espionage between grading papers and sleeping in garages. That's a good one. The whole table erupts in laughter, and I just smile and raise my water glass like I'm toasting my own joke. If only they knew that the punchline is going to be delivered tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. sharp, with a side of boardroom drama that would make reality TV producers weep with joy. And then, just when I'm starting to think this dinner party might actually end without any real fireworks, Harding's phone decides to completely blow up this cozy little family gathering like a hand grenade at a tea party. The buzzing sound cuts through the conversation about mysterious corporate overlords like a chainsaw through butter, and suddenly everyone's watching this guy's face go through more emotional stages than a bad breakup. He glances down at the screen, and I swear I can actually hear his soul deflating like a punctured balloon. Whatever message he's reading, it's not good news. In fact, judging by the way his face is cycling through various shades of panic, it's probably the kind of news that makes people question their life choices and start updating their resumes at midnight. His hands are actually shaking as he stands up from the table, nearly knocking over his wine glass in the process. "I'm so sorry, everyone," he stammers, his voice cracking like a 13-year-old boy asking someone to prom. "I need to step outside and take this call. It's urgent." The poor guy stumbles toward the front door like he's walking to his own execution, and honestly, that's not too far from the truth. Because I know exactly what call he's getting, and it's going to ruin his entire holiday weekend faster than food poisoning at a potluck dinner. While he's outside having what I can only imagine is a deeply unpleasant conversation with his assistant about tomorrow's board meeting, the rest of us are sitting here in awkward silence. It's the kind of uncomfortable quiet that happens when someone's personal drama becomes everyone else's dinner entertainment, and nobody knows whether to pretend they didn't notice or start placing bets on how this is going to end. Claire, bless her completely oblivious heart, is still riding high on her promotion celebration and apparently hasn't picked up on the fact that her boss just had what appears to be a minor nervous breakdown right in front of the cranberry sauce. She's still glowing with that post-victory smugness, completely unaware that she might want to start polishing her resume too. When Harding finally comes back inside, he looks like someone just told him that Christmas has been permanently canceled and Santa's filing for bankruptcy. His face has gone from its normal corporate executive pink to a shade of gray that would make a storm cloud jealous. His hands are still shaking, and there's a light sheen of sweat on his forehead despite the fact that it's cold enough outside to freeze a penguin's tail feathers off. "Everything okay?" my mother-in-law asks with the kind of fake concern that people use when they're really just fishing for gossip material to share with their book club. "Oh yes, fine." Harding lies with all the conviction of someone trying to convince themselves that everything isn't falling apart faster than a house made of wet cardboard. Just some last-minute details about tomorrow's emergency board meeting. You know how it is in the corporate world. Crisis management never takes a holiday. Emergency board meeting. The way he says it makes it sound like he's announcing the arrival of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which, from his perspective, isn't that far off the mark. Claire's fork actually clatters against her plate as the implications start to sink in, which is probably the first time all evening that she's shown any awareness of potential consequences. "But it's Christmas," she protests, her voice taking on that whiny quality that usually appears when reality starts interfering with her plans. Surely they can wait until after the holidays for whatever corporate nonsense needs discussing. The look Harding gives her is absolutely priceless. It's the expression of a man who's just realized that his star employee doesn't understand that business disasters don't take time off for federal holidays. "Actually, Claire," he says with the patience of a kindergarten teacher explaining basic concepts to a particularly slow student, "the meeting is scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. Everyone in senior management must attend. No exceptions." And that's when I decide it's time to stop being a passive observer in this little corporate drama and start stirring the pot a bit. Because honestly, watching these people panic about a meeting where I'm going to be the one calling the shots is just too entertaining to resist getting involved. I clear my throat and put down my napkin with the kind of deliberate precision that makes everyone look at me like I'm about to make an important announcement. Actually, I say with the casual tone of someone correcting a minor detail about the weather, the meeting is scheduled for 8 a.m., not 7. And Claire, don't worry about bringing all those reports you've been working on. I've already reviewed them. The silence that follows is so complete you could hear a pin drop in the next county. Every fork freezes midair. Every conversation stops dead, and every person at this table is staring at me like I just announced that I'm actually an alien from Mars who's been studying human behavior for the past 5 years. Claire lets out a nervous laugh that sounds like a car engine trying to start in sub-zero weather. Marcus, what are you talking about? You don't even work for Summit Enterprises. You teach community college, remember? You grade papers for a living. The look of confusion on her face is absolutely perfect, like someone just told her that water flows uphill and gravity works backwards on Tuesdays. She's trying to process what I just said, but her brain is apparently having trouble computing information that doesn't fit with her carefully constructed version of reality. I stand up slowly, smoothing down my sweater with the kind of calm confidence that comes from knowing you're about to drop the biggest bombshell this family has seen since Uncle Fred accidentally set the Christmas tree on fire 3 years ago. Actually, Claire, I say with a smile that probably looks way too pleased with itself, I do work for Summit. In fact, you could say I have a pretty important position there. A very important position, actually. The anticipation in the room is so thick you could cut it with a knife and serve it as dessert. Everyone's leaning forward slightly, waiting for the punchline to what they assume must be some kind of elaborate joke. In fact, I continue, really savoring this moment because I know I'll never get another opportunity quite like this one. I am Summit Enterprises. The silence that follows my little revelation is so complete and absolute that I'm pretty sure I can actually hear the sound of everyone's worldview crashing down around them like a house of cards in a hurricane. It's the kind of silence that happens right before someone realizes their entire understanding of reality was about as accurate as a weatherman in a tornado, and honestly, I wish I had a camera because the expressions on these faces are absolutely priceless. Harding looks like he's just seen the ghost of Christmas future, and spoiler alert, it's not bringing good news about his retirement plans. His mouth is hanging open, so wide I'm worried he might accidentally swallow a fly, and his eyes have gone so wide I can see white all the way around them like a spooked horse. The color has completely drained from his face, leaving him looking like a vampire who forgot to feed for a few decades. My mother-in-law's wine glass slips right out of her manicured fingers and crashes to the floor, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like a crime scene in slow motion. The sound of breaking crystal doesn't even register with anyone because they're all too busy trying to process the fact that the family failure just announced he's actually a corporate overlord who could probably buy this entire neighborhood and turn it into his personal parking lot. But Claire's reaction is absolutely worth the 5 years of playing this charade. She's staring at me like I just announced that I'm secretly Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy all rolled into one impossible package. Her perfectly applied makeup can't hide the fact that her face has gone through more color changes than a chameleon having an identity crisis. But you drive a Honda, she whispers, her voice barely audible above the sound of everyone's minds collectively blown. She says it like she's grasping for some kind of logical explanation that would make this all make sense, like my choice of transportation is somehow the key to unraveling this mystery. I can't help but shrug with the kind of casual indifference that probably makes me look like a complete psychopath. Yeah, I'm saving the planet while you're single-handedly destroying it with that gas-guzzling Mercedes of yours. Which, by the way, you charge to the company account under business expenses. Nice try. But corporate fraud isn't really a good look for someone in your position. The way her face crumples when I mention the Mercedes is like watching someone realize they've been caught red-handed stealing from the cookie jar. Except the cookies cost $40,000 and came with leather seats. She opens her mouth to say something, probably some kind of excuse about how it was totally legitimate business use, but no sound comes out. It's like her vocal cords have gone on strike in protest of having to defend the indefensible. Dad-in-law finally manages to find his voice, though though it sounds like he's been gargling with gravel and disappointment. You slept in our garage, he croaks, like this is somehow the most unbelievable part of this entire revelation. On a cot, next to the lawnmower. Yep, I say with the kind of cheerful enthusiasm that probably makes me sound completely unhinged. And you know what? It was a great way to stay humble while building a billion-dollar empire. Really keeps things in perspective when you're negotiating hostile takeovers during the day and then coming home to sleep next to rusty garden tools and boxes of ceramic angels that look like they escaped from a horror movie. The mention of my billion-dollar empire seems to hit everyone like a physical blow. Uncle Fred actually staggers backward and has to grab onto the back of his chair to keep from falling over, which is impressive considering he's been sitting down this entire time. Aunt Beatrice looks like someone just told her that everything she thought she knew about the universe was wrong, and also that her favorite soap opera has been canceled. Derek, who's been sitting there with his mouth hanging open like a broken gate, finally manages to stammer out, But you're a teacher. You grade papers. You complain about stapling techniques. Yeah, that's my day job. I explain with the patience of someone talking to a particularly slow child. Turns out you can run a multinational corporation and still find time to educate the future leaders of America. It's called time management, Derek. You should look into it sometime. Might help you figure out why your life peaked in high school. The insult hits him like a slap across the face, but he's too stunned to even respond with his usual meathead comebacks. He just sits there blinking rapidly, like someone shining a flashlight directly into his brain, and he can't figure out how to process the information. Claire finally finds her voice again, though it comes out as more of a desperate shriek than actual words. This is impossible. You can't be. I mean, you're nobody. You're just Marcus. The way she says, just Marcus, with such complete dismissal and contempt is actually kind of hilarious, considering that just Marcus happens to control her paycheck, her career prospects, and pretty much her entire future. It's like watching someone insult the person who holds their mortgage while simultaneously asking them for a loan. Yeah, I'm just Marcus. I agree with a smile that probably looks way too satisfied with itself. Just Marcus who owns the company you work for. Just Marcus who's been signing your paychecks for the past 3 years. Just Marcus who's got copies of every expense report you've ever filed, including that time you tried to write off a weekend in Miami as a team-building exercise. Harding looks like he's about to have a full-scale panic attack right there at the dinner table. His breathing has gotten shallow and rapid, and there's sweat beading on his forehead despite the fact that the dining room is actually pretty cool. He keeps looking at his phone like he's expecting it to ring with some kind of emergency evacuation plan. But I'm pretty sure the cavalry isn't coming to rescue him from this particular disaster. The kids, who have been watching this whole adult meltdown with the fascination of someone watching a really good car accident, finally seem to understand that something major just happened, even if they don't quite grasp the details. They're looking back and forth between all the shocked adults like they're watching the world's most confusing tennis match. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the floodgates of panic officially burst open like a dam made of denial and poor life choices. The dining room transforms from a peaceful Christmas gathering into something that looks like the aftermath of a corporate nuclear bomb, with everyone scrambling to process information that their brains are absolutely refusing to accept as reality. Claire is the first one to completely lose her composure, which honestly isn't that surprising considering she's had the most to lose this entire time. She shoots up from her chair so fast that it actually tips over backward, crashing to the floor with a sound that perfectly matches the current state of her career prospects. "You're lying," she screeches, her voice hitting a pitch that could probably shatter wine glasses in the next county. "This is some kind of sick joke. You're going to fire me, aren't you? This is all some elaborate revenge plot because I made you sleep in the garage." The irony of her accusation is so thick I could serve it as dessert with whipped cream on top. She's standing there, face red with fury and panic, accusing me of plotting revenge when all I've really done is reveal the truth about a situation she created entirely by herself. I mean, I didn't force her to embezzle company funds or lose millions of dollars through sheer incompetence. She managed all that completely on her own. "Fire you," I repeat with the kind of mock surprise that probably makes me sound like a complete sociopath. "Claire, honey, why would I fire you? You're way too entertaining to let go. Besides, Someone needs to serve as a cautionary tale about what happens when nepotism meets spectacular incompetence. Harding, meanwhile, is frantically scrolling through his phone like he's searching for some kind of emergency exit from this nightmare. His fingers are shaking so badly he can barely navigate his contacts, and I can practically see him mentally composing his resignation letter in real time. The poor guy is probably wondering if there's some kind of witness protection program for corporate executives who accidentally mock their own CEO. "Mr. Morrison," he stammers, his voice cracking like a pubescent teenager asking someone to prom. "I had no idea. If I had known. I mean, the garage situation was entirely Claire's family's decision. I had nothing to do with that. Oh, this is Rich." Watching him throw Claire's family under the bus faster than a politician abandoning a sinking campaign is absolutely beautiful. The same guy who was laughing at my expense 20 minutes ago is now desperately trying to distance himself from the whole situation like it's a toxic waste spill. "Relax, Harding," I say with the kind of casual tone you'd use to discuss the weather. "I'm not going to fire you for laughing at jokes about my living situation. I'm going to fire you for losing $4.2 million in the last quarter and then trying to blame it on market fluctuations." The mention of the specific dollar amount hits him like a physical blow. His face goes from panic pale to death warmed over gray, and I'm starting to wonder if we should call an ambulance or just let natural selection take its course. My mother-in-law, who's been sitting there in shocked silence like someone just explained quantum physics using interpretive dance, finally finds her voice. But we gave you the heater," she whispers, like this somehow changes the fundamental nature of reality. "Yes, you did." I agree with exaggerated gratitude. That lovely little fire hazard from the Carter administration really showed me how much the family cares. Nothing says, "Welcome to the family," quite like the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning. Uncle Fred, bless his simple little heart, is still trying to process the basic concept that the family failure is actually a corporate success story. "So you're rich?" he asks with the kind of bewildered expression that suggests this might be the first complex thought he's had all year. "Define rich," I say with a shrug that probably comes across as infuriatingly casual. "I mean, if you're talking about having enough money to buy this entire neighborhood and turn it into my personal miniature golf course, then yeah, I guess you could say I'm doing okay financially." The chaos around the table is reaching peak levels of beautiful disaster. Claire is pacing back and forth like a caged animal, muttering to herself about impossible situations and career suicide. Harding is still frantically texting someone, probably his lawyer or maybe a career counselor who specializes in corporate humiliation recovery. Derek, who's apparently decided that the best response to having his worldview shattered is to get defensive, decides to take one last swing at salvaging his ego. "This doesn't change anything," he declares with the kind of false bravado that fools absolutely nobody. "You still slept in a garage. That still happened." "You're absolutely right." I agree cheerfully. "I did sleep in a garage. On a cot that was probably thinner than your understanding of basic human decency. And you know what? It was a great reminder of why I work so hard to never have to depend on the generosity of people who think treating family like garbage is some kind of Christmas tradition." The insult hits him like a slap across his overly confident face, but before he can formulate a response that doesn't involve grunting, I decide it's time to make my grand exit from this family circus. I stand up slowly, taking my time to fold my napkin neatly and place it beside my plate with the kind of deliberate precision that makes everyone watch my every movement. The silence in the room is so complete you could hear a pin drop in the next state. "Well, this has been absolutely delightful," I announce with the kind of forced cheerfulness that makes it clear I'm about to deliver a knockout punch. "But I think I'll skip the garage accommodations tonight. Don't worry about me. I'll be perfectly comfortable at the Four Seasons. You know, the one downtown with the penthouse suite that overlooks the river? Yeah, I own that hotel. Actually, I own the whole chain." The collective gasp that follows this revelation sounds like someone just sucked all the air out of the room with a giant vacuum cleaner. Claire actually staggers backward like I just punched her in the face with a briefcase full of reality checks. Before anyone can recover enough to respond, I head toward the front door with the kind of confident stride that comes from knowing you just won the game before anyone else even realized they were playing. "Merry Christmas, everyone," I call over my shoulder as I reach for my coat. "Thanks for the hospitality. Really showed me what family is all about." The next morning arrives with all the drama and anticipation of opening night at Broadway. Except instead of applause, I'm expecting the sound of careers crashing and burning in spectacular fashion. I'm sitting at the head of Summit's boardroom table, the same table I've occupied for the past 3 years while playing the role of struggling community college professor. And let me tell you, the view from up here has never looked sweeter. The boardroom itself is a masterpiece of corporate intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the city like we're gods looking down on mortals, a table so polished you could probably perform surgery on it, and chairs that cost more than most people's cars. The whole setup screams, serious business happens here, which is exactly the kind of atmosphere I want for what's about to be the most satisfying meeting of my entire career. My assistant Jennifer has already set everything up perfectly. Fresh coffee that probably costs more per cup than most people spend on lunch, pastries from that fancy French bakery downtown, and copies of all the financial reports that are going to turn this morning into a corporate bloodbath. She's been working with me for 2 years and still doesn't know about my secret identity as the garage-dwelling professor, which honestly makes her one of the few people in my life who's been treating me with consistent respect this whole time. At exactly 7:55, the doors open and in walks Harding, looking like a man who spent the entire night staring at his ceiling and contemplating whether there's a graceful way to fake his own death. His usually perfect hair is disheveled, his expensive suit looks like he slept in it, and there are bags under his eyes that could qualify as carry-on luggage. The guy looks like he's been hit by a truck full of reality checks, which isn't far from the truth. 2 minutes later, Claire makes her entrance, and oh boy, this is even better than I expected. She's clearly tried to put on her best professional face, but there's something desperate and panicky in her eyes that makeup can't hide. Her hands are shaking slightly as she carries her briefcase, probably filled with all those reports she thinks are going to save her career. Spoiler alert, they're not. She takes a seat 2 spots down from me, as far away as she can manage while still sitting at the same table. The woman who was mocking my teaching career 12 hours ago is now avoiding eye contact like I might turn her to stone if she looks directly at me. It's like watching someone realize they've been poking a sleeping dragon with a stick for the past 5 years. The rest of the board members file in, serious-looking people in expensive suits who've been running companies since before Claire learned how to spell corporate synergy. They all nod respectfully as they take their seats, completely unaware that they're about to witness what might be the most epic professional takedown in business history. I let the silence build for exactly 30 seconds, long enough for everyone to feel the weight of anticipation, but not so long that it becomes awkward. Then I clear my throat and open the meeting with what might be my favorite opening line ever. Good morning, everyone. Before we discuss quarterly projections and market forecasts, I think we need to have a little chat about company culture. Specifically, about the importance of treating all employees with basic human dignity and respect, regardless of their titles, their living situations, or how much money you think they make. The words hit Harding like a physical slap. His face goes through about 17 different shades of pale, and he starts fidgeting with his pen like it might somehow transport him to a different dimension where he didn't spend yesterday evening laughing at his own boss. You see, I continue, really warming up to my theme now. I've learned through recent personal experience that some people in this company seem to think that success gives them permission to treat others like garbage. They think that having a corner office means they can mock someone for sleeping in a garage, or that getting a promotion means they can look down on people who choose different career paths. Claire is actively trying to disappear into her chair at this point, shrinking down like she's hoping the expensive leather will somehow swallow her whole. She's scribbling notes frantically, probably trying to look busy and professional, but her hands are shaking so badly that whatever she's writing probably looks like seismic activity readings. Now, I understand that this kind of behavior might seem harmless, I say, my voice getting just a tiny bit sharper. After all, what's the harm in a few jokes at someone's expense? What's wrong with a little family fun at Christmas dinner? But here's the thing about treating people badly based on assumptions. Sometimes those assumptions turn out to be spectacularly wrong. Harding actually whimpers. It's a sound I didn't know grown men could make. But there it is, echoing around this boardroom like the death rattle of his career prospects. He's sweating so profusely that I'm starting to worry he might dehydrate right here at the conference table. The other board members are looking confused but intrigued, like they're watching a really interesting corporate training video, but haven't figured out the lesson yet. They keep glancing between me, Harding, and Claire, trying to piece together what's happening without having all the context. The moral of this story, I continue, taking a leisurely sip of my coffee like I'm discussing the weather instead of ending careers, is that you never know who you're really talking to. That quiet guy in the garage might be the one signing your paychecks. That struggling professor might own the company you work for. And that person you're treating like a second-class citizen might actually be the one who decides whether you get to keep your job. Claire finally looks up from her frantic note-taking, and the expression on her face is absolutely priceless. It's like watching someone realize that the person they've been insulting is actually their judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one perfectly pressed business suit. Which brings us to today's real agenda item. I announce, setting down my coffee cup with the kind of finality that sounds like a gavel hitting wood. We need to discuss some recent personnel changes that are going to be necessary for the continued success of this company. The silence that follows is so complete and terrifying that I'm pretty sure everyone has stopped breathing. And you know what? I'm going to savor every single second of it.